A quiet Saturday interrupted. To Jackson, Saturdays were sacred. They were a break from the relentless pace of his job as a federal agent and a return to the simple, sun-drenched role of a family man. Every other week, the Peterson family would gather at Willow Creek Park, a quiet green space along the lazy, winding river. Jackson would tend to the grill. His wife, Maria, would prepare the side dishes, and their two kids, Leo and Kelly, would chase a frisbee across the lawn. This ritual was their anchor, a steady rhythm in a chaotic world. But on one particular Saturday, that rhythm was broken. A county patrol car, tires crunching on gravel, slowly drove onto the grass and came to a stop just a few yards from their picnic blanket. Two officers emerged, their movements slow and deliberate, and their faces devoid of any warmth. The older of the two officers, his mirrored sunglasses reflecting the afternoon sun, addressed Jackson with a question that felt more like an accusation. "Got a permit for this gathering?" Jackson, wiping his hands on a towel, was taken aback. "It's not a gathering, sir. It's just a family cookout." The younger officer, his eyes scanning the tables laden with food, interjected, "Looks like more than a family thing to me." The air grew heavy and thick with tension. Maria instinctively put a hand on Kelly's shoulder, a silent gesture of protection. Jackson, trained in observing the subtle shifts in human behavior, remained outwardly calm. He knew the energy behind their words wasn't about permits. He calmly asserted his rights, stating that they were not required to provide identification unless they were under lawful suspicion of a crime. This only seemed to escalate the situation. The officers' questions became sharper, their tone more aggressive. One of them began to run the license plate of Jackson's SUV. It was a clear sign that they were treating a simple family outing as a potential crime scene. In that moment, Jackson felt the weight of his reality. His professional title and years of service meant nothing here. He was just a black man at a park, and that was enough to warrant suspicion. Finally, knowing he had no other choice, Jackson reached for his wallet. But instead of his driver's license, he produced his federal badge and credentials. The officers' attitudes changed instantly. Their hostility melted into awkward apologies, and they retreated to their car, leaving behind a silence that felt louder than any shouting. The peace of the day was gone. Leo, still holding a half-eaten hot dog, asked, "What just happened?" Jackson knelt down to his son's level, his voice soft but firm. "Nothing you did, son, but you need to remember what you saw." Maria, who had been silently recording the entire exchange on her phone, looked at her husband with a mixture of anger and concern. "If you didn't have that badge," she whispered, "it could have gone so differently." Jackson knew she was right. It wasn't about the law. It was about who gets to be treated like a person and who doesn't. The video goes viral. That evening, Maria uploaded the raw video to a social media platform. No captions, no hashtags, just a simple message. "This happened to my family today at Willow Creek Park. No permit, no problem. But they came anyway. Watch for yourself." The next morning, the video had exploded. It was shared, commented on, and dissected by thousands. Jackson, who had spent his career working quietly in the background, was now at the center of a national conversation. Local news channels showed up at his house, and Jackson, with Maria's support, agreed to an interview. "Do you believe this was racially motivated?" the reporter asked. Jackson, looking directly into the camera, answered with unwavering clarity, "I don't think it. I know it. They didn't ask what we were doing there. They assumed what we were doing there. If I didn't have a badge, they would have kept pushing." The video's virality in Jackson's candid interview sent shockwaves through his agency. He received a call from his director, who gently reminded him of his oath and the importance of discretion. The message was clear. They wanted him to be quiet. But for Jackson, silence was no longer an option. Finding a voice, Jackson took a week of personal leave, the first he had ever requested without a family emergency. He used that time to speak at a local university, where he addressed a crowded lecture hall of students. "I didn't come here to talk about theory," he began. "I came here to talk about what it feels like when doing everything right still lands you under suspicion. Last Saturday, I was just a father grilling ribs. But to them, I was just a black man. And that was always the first thing they saw." His words resonated deeply. He encouraged the students to ask tough questions, to challenge broken systems, and to speak up when they saw injustice. You don't need a badge to stand up for someone, he told them. You just need a spine. Inspired by his newfound voice, and with the help of a former colleague, Jackson founded a small nonprofit called Line of Sight. Its mission was to train law enforcement officers, educate the public, and amplify the unheard stories of those who felt failed by the system, returning to a new normal. Nearly 3 weeks after the incident, Jackson returned to Willow Creek Park alone. He sat on the same spot under the same sycamore tree, a notebook on his lap. He wasn't there to write a report, but to process. A local man pushing a stroller saw him and simply said, "I saw what happened. Sorry you had to go through that. It shouldn't be that way." The brief exchange, devoid of cameras or fanfare, meant more to Jackson than all the news interviews combined. A few moments later, he heard a familiar voice call out, "Thought you'd come without us?" Maria, Kelly, and Leo walked toward him, a picnic basket in hand. They spread a blanket on the grass, and Jalen began to assemble a kite. Jackson looked at his family, the warmth of their presence a stark contrast to the coldness of the day they had endured here. He helped his son launch the kite into the sky, watching it soar with a sense of freedom he hadn't felt in weeks. Later, sitting next to Maria, he confessed, "I used to think staying quiet kept us safe, but I realize now it just made it easier for other people to stay comfortable." He picked up his notebook, turned to a fresh page, and began to write again. This time, his words weren't for a report or a news interview. They were for anyone who might need to read them one day. He finished with a single powerful sentence. "We belong here. We always did."